Hello, class. Having read the given passage, now it is time for us to practice the accompanying exercises. Uh, in the first place, I would like to give you some brief explanation and, more importantly, some examples so that later on you can practice the exercises independently. Let's begin with the pattern for Tune 1. So you have learned that prose dialogue is the dialogue which is found in a piece of prose. And the problem with reading this kind of prose dialogue lies in the wrong reading of the connecting passage. So the connecting passage here is the one which is usually begin with he said, he asked, and mm, similar phrases like this. The key to successful reading of the prose dialogue is in the knowledge of reading this connecting passage. So, whenever we have the dialogue is the one that will dictate the movement or the intonation of the explanatory passage of the prose. In other words, whenever the dialogue is in the falling intonation, then the connecting passage will also be pronounced with falling intonation. On the contrary, when the dialogue is in the rising intonation, the connecting passage will also be pronounced in the rising intonation. For tune 1, the falling intonation, let me pronounce the example as an illustration. You can't come, he said angrily. Here you can see that the significant fall is on the word come, and the connecting passage he said angrily will be treated as the tail. The pronunciation of this connecting passage will be more or less weakly stressed, and the intonation of this passage follows the same direction as the last stress of the dialogue itself, in this case, the one that occurs on the word come. So, once again, I will pronounce the example. You can't come, he said angrily. You can't come is pronounced with a significant fall on the word come. He said angrily is given no stress and is just following the intonation of the significant fall on the word come. So we just finish, what is that? The remaining voice or the remaining energy we have without necessarily giving some stresses on the connecting passage. It will be just treated as the unstressed tail. Now, could you please turn to exercise 1? In this exercise, you have to read the short dialogue, the short fragments of the dialogue appropriately. There are 15 items there, and I will give you example taken from the first two of the sentences. Number 1, what's it for? He inquired in a whisper. Once again, what's it for? He inquired in a whisper. Number 2, you'll have to put a stamp on, he explained in his best French. Number 2, let me repeat, you'll have to put a stamp on, he explained in his best French. So, in these two sentences, if you notice, the tail, the connecting passages in this case, will be pronounced in an unstressed manner. They're just following the significant fall on the preceding dialogue. In number one, it falls on the word for, and in number two, it falls on the word stem. And then the remaining words will be just pronounced with an unstressed manner with falling intonation. Now let us turn to the second pattern, which is for the rising intonation. When we have got this pattern, the tail, the connecting passage, will be pronounced as an unstressed tail also. So here, the question, can you come, is pronounced with the significant rise, yeah, the final rise on the word come, and the tail, the connecting passage, will be continuing as the tail of the unstressed syllable, and it's also pronounced with rising intonation. Let me give you an example. Can you come? He asked quietly. Once again, can you come? He asked quietly. So, in this case, please notice that um, the rising of the tail will be slightly higher than the normal end where the final fall occurs. Now, could you please turn to exercise 2? You have to read the short fragments of the dialogue properly as well by noticing that the dialogue is pronounced in its rising intonation, and therefore the connecting passage or the descriptive phrases there will be pronounced with a rising intonation as well. Let me just read out two more sentences as an illustration. Number one, is this for me? He asked with surprise. Once again, is this for me? He asked with surprise. Number two, I hope you don't mind, she remarked apologetically. Once again, pay attention that we have a special stress on the word hope, and we have the final rise on the word mind. I hope you don't mind, she remarked apologetically. There are times when the connecting passages are not short as the one that we have just practiced, but the connecting passages will be longer. Whenever this happen, we need to know that the tail um, will be pronounced. The tail is indicated by the use of italics, yeah, the use of italics, and the final fall, the actual stress, the final stress will fall or will be printed in heavier type, will be indicated by the heavier type or the bolded type. Let me give you an example. You can't come, he said, slowly turning away. So see here, the final fall is come, is on the word come, and then the tail, due to the length, will be pronounced with the final stress on the word away will be pronounced slightly lower. Let me give you more examples, at least we can see the first two of exercise 3. Come here, commanded the captain in a loud voice. Once again, come here, commanded the captain in a loud voice. Number 2, it's nearly 10 o'clock, she observed, glancing at her watch. It's nearly 10 o'clock, she observed, glancing at her watch. Now for the tune 2 intonation. This will also apply the same principle in that the longer connecting passage will also be pronounced with a rising intonation. Let me give you an example. Can you come? He asked quietly, closing the door. Once again, can you come? He asked quietly, closing the door. So I hope you can notice the stress, the rising intonation, on the word come and the one on the word door. Yeah, so the word door, the rising there is slightly higher than the one on the preceding word on come. Now you can turn to exercise 4, whereby I will read out 2 sentences as an example for you. Did you hear? He repeated with an angry frown. Once again. Did you hear? He repeated with an angry frown. Number 2. Is that you? He called as the door banged. Is that you? He called as the door banged. So you now can turn to the exercises to have your independent practice. Good luck.